I've lived in 3 different houses in my life. 2 with my family, and the one I'm in now, alone. This happened in the very first house, during the last few months before we moved out. I was 15 at the time. My family never really talked to the neighbors. Not out of hostility, it just never happened. Especially the people living next door. There was a father and his 2 sons. Their names were Eric and Todd. That's all we knew. We'd lived next to them for years and had barely exchanged more than a greeting once or twice. Which always felt strange, considering how close our houses were. One afternoon, my younger brother and I were outside shooting basketball in the driveway. That's when Todd walked over. He was about my age, maybe a year older. He asked if it was true that we were moving soon. I answered most of the questions. My brother mostly stayed quiet. Before heading back home, Todd invited us to go shooting BB guns by the river the next day, in the woods down the road. I agreed without thinking much of it. At the last second, my little brother asked if he could come too. Todd hesitated, then said yes. The next day, about an hour before sunset, Eric and Todd rang our doorbell. We answered quickly. Our parents didn't know where we were going. That should have been my first warning. They were wearing full camouflage, and they were carrying a duffel bag. Walking down the sidewalk with them felt uncomfortable. They barely spoke. The seriousness in their faces didn't match what was supposed to be a casual BB gun outing. When we reached the woods, Todd dropped the duffel bag and unzipped it. Eric snapped a thick branch off a tree and threw it into the river, hard. Then Todd handed us the guns. That's when he said it. "These aren't BB guns." Before I could react, Eric grabbed one and started firing across the river, real gunshots cracking through the wood. I felt my stomach drop. I yanked the gun out of my brother's hands, shoved both back into the bag, and told them we were leaving. Their expressions changed instantly. Anger. Coldness. One of them cursed at us as we walked away. We told our parents later that night that the neighbors' kids were weird, but we didn't mention the guns. I wish we had. That night, I woke up to freezing air hitting my face. My window was wide open. Something hard pressed against the back of my head. A voice whispered right behind me. "Shoo." I knew instantly what was happening. It was Todd. He told me, quietly, that if I ever told anyone about the guns, especially his dad, he'd come back and kill me and my entire family. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just said, "Okay." He pressed the gun harder against my head, then climbed back out the window. For months after that, I'd see Eric or Todd standing at their windows at night, watching my room. Watching my brother's room. Always staring. A week before we moved, a rock hit my window at 1 a.m. I opened it and saw Todd aiming a pistol straight at me. I dove to the floor. They laughed. I heard them mocking me from the darkness. There were a couple more incidents like that before we finally moved. We never told anyone. Even now. All I know is this. Those boys were dangerous, and leaving that house may have saved our lives. I don't know how to explain what I'm dealing with right now, or even who I should tell. Honestly, I don't even know if I should be telling anyone at all. This started 5 years ago. My next-door neighbor, Charles, everyone calls him Charlie, came knocking on our door late one evening. His face was pale, his hands shaking. He told my wife and me that his 14-year-old son had gone missing. The police were already involved. Within days, it was all over the local news. Missing posters went up on street poles. Search parties combed the area. Helicopters flew overhead for weeks. We felt horrible for them. We offered food. We offered rides. We offered help with anything they needed. But nothing ever came of it. Months passed. Then years. There was never any update. No body. No arrest. No explanation. Eventually, people stopped talking about it. Charlie and his wife changed after that. Anyone would. His wife became withdrawn, barely speaking when we crossed paths. Charlie himself grew nervous, jumpy, like someone constantly waiting for something bad to happen. Still, every summer they invited us over for a barbecue. We accepted out of politeness. Everything always felt off, but we never pressed them about their son. We didn't have the heart. Until last week. I was taking out the trash when Charlie came up behind me and asked if he could borrow a shovel. Nothing strange about that. Without hesitation, I went into my garage and handed him my best one. He thanked me quickly and said he just needed to do some work in his backyard. He promised he'd return it the next day. Later that afternoon, I went upstairs and happened to glance out the window that overlooked his yard. That's when I saw him digging. Not a small hole. A deep one. The kind that takes effort. He was sweating, clearly struggling. Charlie's in his mid-50s. Watching him strain like that didn't sit right with me, so I grabbed my second shovel and walked over to help. The moment I stepped into his yard and called his name, everything changed. Charlie looked up. His expression shifted instantly, panic, then anger. He dropped my shovel, rushed toward me, and waved his arms. No, it's fine. Just leave, he said. I laughed it off at first, confused. What's wrong with you? I'm just helping. That's when his tone turned cold. I will not allow you to dig in my backyard, he said. Then he pointed to the gate, ordering me out. I was so shocked by his behavior that I didn't even argue. I just left. That night, I watched from my upstairs window. He kept digging for another half hour. When he finally stopped, he did something that sent a chill through me. He looked around. Upward. Toward nearby houses. Like he was checking to see if anyone was watching. And then, he looked straight at my window. I stepped back instantly. After that, he stopped working entirely. I knew he was waiting for darkness. At around 1:30 a.m., I heard the unmistakable sound of metal hitting dirt. I crept outside and peered over the fence. Charlie was back in the hole, digging again. When he went inside briefly, I took my chance. I climbed over and looked into the hole. Moonlight barely illuminated the bottom, but it was enough. Something black was sticking out of the dirt. A piece of a garbage bag. I looked at the house, then back at the hole. Over and over. I didn't touch it. I ran back to my yard just in time, because seconds later, Charlie came back outside. But he didn't keep digging. He walked around the side of his house, and never returned. The next morning, the hole was gone. Completely filled in. His SUV was no longer in the driveway, it was parked on the street. I don't know what happened that night. But I can't stop thinking that whatever was buried there might have been his son. Or that maybe he moved it. I've told no one. Not even my wife. Charlie never returned my shovel. And he avoids me now. Yesterday, in broad daylight, I looked out my window and saw him standing in his house, staring into mine. When our eyes met, he shut his blinds instantly. I don't know what to do. But I'm terrified that something terrible happened next door. And that whatever Charlie buried isn't buried anymore. 2 weeks ago, something happened that made me question whether I'm actually safe in my own home. I've never liked my neighborhood. I'm fresh out of college, living alone for the first time, and this was the only area I could afford. It's not dangerous in the obvious way, no constant sirens or break-ins, but it's the kind of place where nothing ever feels right. Especially my neighbors. On one side, there's a family that blasts music all night like they're trying to drown out reality. On the other side, there are two women. An older woman, probably in her early 60s, cold, unfriendly, always watching. And a younger woman who clearly has severe mental issues. I never knew their relationship. Mother and daughter, caretaker and patient, no one ever explained it. What I did know was this: something about them felt wrong. I'd sometimes sit on my front porch in the evenings, scrolling on my phone, when I'd notice movement next door. The older woman would be holding the younger one back while she rocked violently, arms crossed tight against her chest, screaming incoherent sounds. Sometimes the younger woman would point at me. Not randomly. Directly at me. She'd mumble things I couldn't hear, her eyes locked on mine, while the older woman whispered urgently in her ear, pulling her back inside. There were nights I went indoors early, not because I was tired, but because I felt watched. Still, I told myself it wasn't my business. Until that night. I had work early the next morning, so I went to bed around 10:30. But the noise next door was worse than usual. The younger woman was screaming, full-throated, animal screaming. The older woman was yelling back, clearly overwhelmed. This went on for almost an hour. I tried to ignore it. Headphones didn't help. Finally, frustrated and exhausted, I walked over and knocked on their door. Hard. The older woman opened it immediately. "What the hell do you want?" she snapped. I kept my voice calm and asked if they could keep the noise down. I had work in the morning. She stared at me like I'd insulted her. Then, behind her, the younger woman entered the room. She pointed at me and screamed, "How dare you! How dare you!" Over and over. The older woman grabbed her arms, holding her back, then slammed the door in my face without another word. I stood there for a moment, heart pounding, before walking back home. Strangely, the noise stopped. Completely. I fell asleep almost immediately. That's why it confused me when I woke up again. I checked my phone. 3 a.m. I sighed in relief and tried to relax, until I thought I heard something downstairs. A soft sound. Like footstep. I got out of bed and cracked my bedroom door open, listening. Nothing. I told myself I was imagining it and went back to sleep. 20 minutes later, I woke up again. This time, I knew something was wrong. The room felt different, heavier. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, finding it by touch. I didn't turn the flashlight on. I just listened. Then I heard it. Breathing. Not mine. Slow. Controlled. Coming from somewhere near the foot of my bed. My heart slammed against my ribs. I slowly turned my head. At the edge of my bed, pressed against the wooden frame, was a dark, circular shape. A face. I turned on my phone light. The scream that followed wasn't human. The younger woman from next door recoiled like she'd been burned, shrieking violently as the light hit her face. Her eyes were wide, unfocused, her mouth stretched impossibly open. I screamed too. I bolted for the door, tripping over my own feet and crashing into the hallway wall. I looked back just long enough to see her crawling toward me, fingers scraping against the floor. I slammed the bedroom door shut and ran downstairs. Locked the stairway door. called 911 with shaking hands. She pounded on the door above me, screaming words I couldn't understand. When the police arrived, the older woman came running over, begging them not to arrest her. The officers took the younger woman anyway for the night. One of them asked if I wanted to press charges. As he asked, the older woman stared at me. Not angry. Not scared. Hateful. Like I'd ruined something important. I said no. The police drove away with the younger woman. 5 minutes later, I watched from my window as the older woman got into her car and left. They still live next door. Every time I see that house now, I feel my stomach tighten. Because I know something I wish I didn't. That woman didn't wander into my room by accident. She knew exactly where I live. And she knew how to get inside.